Hi everyone, welcome back to the Founders Disco. I'm your host Shuj, and we're here with Darron Goralsky. He's the CEO and Clinical Director of Melbourne TMJ and Facial Pain Centre. It's a big title. Hi Darron, how are you?
Great, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thanks for being here. Darron, tell us a bit about you and your clinic and sort of what you guys are up to.
Okay, so some history. For those wondering, I have a South African accent. So I trained many years ago, over 30 years, as a physiotherapist in South Africa. And after 3 years of clinical practice there, I came to Australia. Been here 29 years now, so kind of giving my age away a little bit. And I was always interested in the conditions around the jaw and face, because I'd been exposed to that at one of the first clinics that I worked at back in South Africa. And what I noticed though is when I got to Australia that the people that were tasked with managing these conditions weren't really physios or osteos, they were more the dentists for obvious reasons, because of where the condition occurs. But the more I looked into these conditions, the more I realized that they really are not that dissimilar. They're more complicated, but they're not dissimilar in the components that are part and parcel of the condition, so muscles, joints, nerves, as any other area in the body. And so I couldn't understand why for these types of conditions there weren't physiotherapists or osteopaths treating them with that same kind of lens that they would other parts of the body. And unfortunately, because the tasks fell to the dentists to do it, they were looking at it through a very different lens based on their training. And so I became really interested in trying to firstly understand how dentists view these conditions and how they were approaching the treatment, and also how I could kind of bridge that gap in providing additional care for these patients so that they were more comprehensively managed. And this was obviously a slow burn, but eventually in about 2012, 2013, I decided that I needed to really focus my clinical focus more exclusively on these conditions, and that's when I established Melbourne TMJ and Facial Pain Centre. So TMJ stands for Temporomandibular Joint. It's the name of the jaw joint. People, we still get referrals, please treat for TMJ. That's like saying treat for elbow. That doesn't, it's not the right term. The term to refer to these conditions is TMD, temporomandibular disorder. And even then, it's just an umbrella term that just says there's something wrong in that area. It doesn't tell us what the condition is. And then in addition to that, what I learned through my discovery is that there's a very big neck and back of head component to these conditions as well, which is not on the radar of the dental world in the main, because it's not what they focus on. They're really going to focus exclusively from here forwards. And so over the years, as our own approach grew, so I recognized the need to be treating the head and the neck as part of these conditions. And eventually I was approached by one of my referring dentists who had left Melbourne and gone to work and further his own studies in the Northern Territory. When he came back to Melbourne, having worked in a clinic that saw a lot of these conditions, he said to me, Darron, we have to work together. These things need a collaborative approach. And the type of stuff that he does for them is not general dental approach, it's more advanced. And so he joined my team and set up the dental component of Melbourne TMJ and Facial Pain Centre. And so the clinic started to really offer more of a multidisciplinary approach to these conditions, which is really what it needs. And as the clinic got busier and busier, being one of the only physios in the team that had the interest in these conditions, so my caseload grew to the point where I was consulting literally 60 hours a week, which is obviously not sustainable. And 18 months before my 50th birthday, I thought to myself, if I don't change something by the time I turn 50, I'm definitely heading down the path of burnout. I was only taking 2 weeks of holidays a year. And I made a conscious decision to rejig the whole way that I was running the practice. And I recognized the need to take what I had developed as a skill set and actually kind of package it in a way that I could teach it to other people so that they could become skilled in a short space of time with my guidance and mentoring to be able to manage these conditions. And so I was fortunate enough to join an amazing academy that helped me put in place all the different bolts and nuts that I needed to make the practice much more automated and get me to a point where I could start to replace my hours with people. And I did that successfully. And as we use the term, come off the tools. So I did that at the end of December 2019. And then, of course, we were struck by COVID, the whole industry. And that was a bit of an upset of the apple cart, because I had to consult again when we wished the clinic, and then when we opened again, I had to consult again because none of my team were ready to come back to work. But the last time that I actually treated patients was in July 2022, because I have a big team of, we call it with TMJ therapists, so we have both physiotherapists and osteopaths that I've trained in our method. And we've given that method a name, the Goralsky Craniomandibular Method. And everybody in the team is kind of on the same page. And so all the while that I was doing this, I was also quite passionate about sharing these insights with my dental colleagues, because they were referring patients to us, but they didn't really know what we were doing and why we were doing that. And so I started to offer free professional development education sessions to dental clinics, medical clinics, other allied health clinics. And as I said, I've been doing that for quite some time. And in the last 5 years, the dentist that runs my practice, the dental side, he runs his own 6-day mini residency, which is a training for dental professionals in temporomandibular disorders and sleep. So there's a really big crossover between people that are experiencing jaw pain or headaches when they're clenching and grinding their teeth. There's a big crossover between cohorts of patients who might have sleep apnea and are also clenching and grinding their teeth. And so we also needed to kind of understand that intersection of how breathing affected these patients. And so this 6-day mini residency that he runs, I run a 5-hour masterclass on my area of specialization for him. And he encouraged me, he said, look, I think that you need to actually develop your own course so that you can educate dental professionals to have better assessment and even hands-on treatment skills so that they can do stuff in the chair for their patients, or at least they know how to better assess that musculo-skeletal system, which they weren't really doing because it's just not part of their training. And so that brings us up to very recently. And then you and I were having a conversation about the fact that I was approached to try and create an online product, educational product for dentists that they could do on demand. And that kind of brings us up to date.
Yeah, amazing. What a journey. What an amazing journey. And what I picked up, this all started because you were interested in a certain part of the body and just went down that rabbit hole, and now we're here, right?
Yeah. It was a difficult to make, because I love every part of the body, but at that time I really felt like there was a gap for these patients. I affectionately call these groups of conditions the Bermuda Triangle of medical conditions, because they can present in a number of different ways, right? So somebody could be complaining of ear symptoms, like blocking, ringing, or aching. Or they could be complaining of actual jaw pain, or it might be headaches. And whichever the most prominent symptom is will largely determine the rabbit hole that they go down to try and find help. And let's just say that it's ear-related symptoms. They might go to the GP, and the GP can't find anything, sends them to an ear, nose, and throat specialist who sends them for, audiology testing. And then they say, look, there's really nothing wrong with the ears themselves. You could be clenching and grinding your teeth, because we know that there's that association, and they might then send them to a dentist, and the dentist says, yep, I can see confirmation and evidence that you are clenching and grinding. We're going to give you a splint, a bite plate, to protect your teeth. And that might be the end of their journey, but that person's still got ear pain, or it might be headaches. And so once I realized that this group of patients really weren't being adequately catered, in my opinion, I had a decision to let everything else go in terms of my focus. Look, I had been a physiotherapist for a long time at that stage, so I felt pretty confident that if a shoulder or a knee or an ankle patient came in, I could do a decent job with them. I didn't feel the need to read every single article that came across in the journal. But what I did want to do is I wanted to dive really deeply into these conditions so that I could understand them much better, and not just from my perspective, but try and understand the perspective of the other people who were seeing these patients, so that I understood where their treatment fitted in, which gave me that appreciation for why it is a complex group of conditions. There's often a system part. These people are not sleeping very well. They're often not breathing well, so that's where the intersection is with airway issues. And there's often a stress component. So I had to give myself permission to actually only learn in this area. So yeah, it was a bit of a mindset change that I needed to make. That was the first big one. And then the second biggest mindset change that I had to make, which was probably even harder, was stopping consulting. Knowing that I had these skills to help people, and that I was essentially the income producer for my family, but actually stopping seeing the patients myself was quite a nerve-wracking thing, because you're then leaving the success of your practice and your ability to earn an income to other people, which is another thing that really inspires me to make sure that we're constantly upgrading everybody's skills, and mentoring and supporting, and professional development is very, very much part of the environment that we've created. But learning that I still had value to offer without being the actual caregiver was a hard thing to learn. And I had to have a sign up on my desk for a long time that said, I don't get paid by the hour, I get paid by the value I bring to the hour.
Absolutely. We've been through a few iterations of that within our business as well. Me and my partner founder, so we grew up as coders. Taking ourselves off the keyboard was and still, we're going. So he does a lot of the type of stuff, and I do a lot of the front-facing, outcome-based stuff. And we still both fall into that little pattern every now and again. We're like, oh, we'll just dabble, just a little.
Yeah. You have to learn when to say no.
Yeah. With this digital product that you're doing at the moment, is there a particular problem set that you're trying to solve, or the education you're trying to bring to people, and who are those people?
So it is at the moment, this education is still very focused on the dental world. The challenge that I've got is, how do I take 2 days worth of, I think it's 15 hours of content that I'm delivering face to face, and what do I extract from that to put into a online product? And I've been in conversation with that I'm partnering with, who are essentially, they are directors, they do a lot of filming, and they're in this medical space. But they've said, look, why don't we work on we'll film for 4 to 5 hours, and we'll see how much content we can be left with, which will obviously largely depend on my ability to do it in one take, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of moving parts there. So the challenge that I have at the moment is, number one, what 4 to 5 hours out of my 15 hours do I actually put there for filming? And then not knowing how much we're actually going to be left with. How do I know that at the end of the day, if we've got, say, 2.5, 3 hours worth of good content, that alone is going to address a problem for a dentist that I'm trying to address with the content? So that's the challenge. I don't have the answer yet. I need to start with the end in mind and go, what do people want to get out of a session, and can I engineer that with that I put aside for filming, and hopefully we get enough of that content into a usable state, so that it's something that can be up as so yeah, it's knowing what to put into that.
Yeah, I bet. So, just something that you have done recently, similar project, but from an accountant's perspective. So you've got a really experienced accountant, financial advisor. He offers a range of finance-based services, right? And he was trying to, in a similar way, solve a problem for other accountants who sort of are at that tax return factory stage in their career, and that's sort of all they do is tax returns and bookkeeping, and so consumed with that they don't see other opportunities when they come across. So I wouldn't call it a course, it's more of a practical tool for these this group of people. So they put clients through a survey. It takes about 45 minutes. It's pretty comprehensive. And based on the answers that are given, the accountant is then presented with a document, and the document has certain education based around the questions, the specificity of the questions, and then provides advice based on the specific answer. And the sort of part of that value is a set of video. But because you've got writing, you've got a very different ways of delivering information, he's using the video content to tell stories and put context towards that information that's being delivered. So hey, this client said that this and this, therefore you should advise them on or offer them on this and what you do. People can read that, and these are professionals, so he doesn't want to insult their intelligence either. And then on the back end, they jump into this 2-3 minute clip of him telling an actual story of one of his clients and how they were in this situation, the exact steps they took, yada yada yada. This is why I recommend you do this. Potentially an approach that you could take, like you said, reverse engineering, like, okay, what do I want these people to go home with? What do I actually need to record if I only have 5 hours? And some of it be documentation, but working backwards is a good approach, I think.
Yeah, and some good food for thought from what you just said.
And if this product was fully, let's say, tomorrow, what kind of impact would that make on your business, for your customers and for?
Look, I think my first objective is to just create better awareness and some upskilling of my dental colleagues, so that they can look at these conditions through the same sort of eyes that I look at them through as a physiotherapist or as an osteopath on my team would. Because I just think that would make them better clinicians, and they would potentially be able to solve some of these problems themselves without even needing to refer. But it will also make them better referrers, which is obviously, if we're the leading business in this area, there's an upside from a referral perspective. But that's not my motivating factor. My motivating factor is really just to change the game and shake up the industry a little bit by making general dentists recognize the fact that there are other things that they should be looking at, and that it's within their scope of practice to be doing this. From the perspective, obviously having a product that has a fee attached to it, potentially down the track would be a source of revenue, and that's obviously ultimate leverage where I'm no longer selling time. I mean, even though I'm not seeing patients at the moment, I'm still trading in time as a business because we charge for appointments, and so moving to a model where there's more leverage is appealing. And the bottleneck that I had in the past thinking about this, because this is not the first time that I've actually thought about creating a product, but in the past my more the fear of the technical component of this, what platform do I store it on, who do I get to do the video, all that kind of stuff, and that all that was taken away from me as a concern when I was approached by this other company that already does filming, because they will take care of all of that, and they just need me to be the subject matter expert. And then as we would then jointly go to the right type of associations or online forums to then see if there was an appetite for the content that we'd created. So kind of like leapfrogged my ability to completely bypass those other challenges that I had when I looked at doing something like this a couple of years ago.
Yeah, amazing. And look, given the current scope and the technology that actually exists, the things you're talking about and the way you're talking about those scalable outcomes, they're actually super achievable in many different ways. So that app that I was telling you about that we developed for that accountant, there's about I think 10 to 14 hours of content in there, video content, and he did not spend that amount of time in a studio, right? In fact, I believe it was only 3 sort of 1 to 2 hour sessions that they spent, and then used that as a training model, and an AI took over it. To the point where we guess, like as a game, guess which video is him and which video is AI. It's that good. Not particularly cheap, but more economic than 15 hours in a studio, and infinitely scalable, right? You don't have to just bang out a script. It knows exactly how you speak, down to the inflections and the ums and the ahs. Those kinds of options are available as well, sort of, long term. Even if midterm, you said you have 5 hours available, you can use that 5 hours and then multiply it out using technology if you need to, I'd be happy to introduce you to them. They're actually based in Melbourne, and you guys can share your experiences. It's very similar in terms of your projects.
Yeah. This is the accountant you're talking about?
Yeah. More specifically, his partner, who is he's more of the director of the whole operation, as opposed to, like the accountant's the subject matter. But Scott sort of handles the delivery side of things. And they're a wonderful combination of people to work for and with as well. Have there been any frustrations or challenges getting to this point?
Well, going back to what I was saying before, so when I was originally I went away on a business retreat, and my focus was to develop a course, and at that retreat, I was actually convinced to start with the online masterclass as a segue to the course, a sort of a taster, which I thought, yeah, that makes sense. And that's when I got frustrated, because then I actually didn't know where to start, to the extent that I just put it back on the shelf and I did nothing. And so when I looked at my goal from last year, I had made absolutely no headway on it, I got quite frustrated that I'd allowed something like this to hamper me. And so then I basically went back to thinking, I'm doing a face-to-face course, because it's a matter of getting your content locked down, booking your venue. They're all things within my realm of abilities to do. I don't need to worry about the technical aspects. And so, I appreciate why the recommendation was made to start off with something online, but for me it actually just completely sidelined my plans. And so what I've done now makes a lot more sense, because now that I've done my face-to-face and I'm in control of almost every aspect, now I can use other people's expertise and develop that online product. It's just about knowing what to put into it, as we were chatting about. But that's probably my biggest frustration, was just feeling like I was allowing the technology to get in the way when probably didn't need to allow that to happen. Because had I go ahead with the masterclass idea, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel myself, I could have probably just found somebody to take care of all those technical aspects.
Yeah, leveraging what exists as opposed to starting from scratch, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And your AI version of that is just taking it to another whole level, right?
Yeah. Like I use a reasonable amount of AI, in professionally, but that application of it actually blew my mind. Like, it was that far advanced, and we're only in 2025. Like, over the coming years, like, you'll be able to voice dictate, like, hey, make me a video, here's your training set, you know what to do, this is the subject, and they'll be able to do exactly that using us as the model.
We become our own avatars.
Yeah. So that's what they did with that video creation, was they turned their subject into an avatar and now just command that avatar. It's incredible. And we do the same in the background. We use AI coding agents and stuff like that, and they're only getting better and better.
You there?
Darren, I might have lost you.
Yeah, I can hear you now. You dropped out for a moment there, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was just saying, we're using AI coding agents as well as, that video avatar idea, and they're only getting better and better. It's pretty incredible.
I won't say we've explored it at length, but every second week I get somebody hitting me up on LinkedIn to say, hey, we've created a AI receptionist for your business. Just ring this number and ask to book an appointment. And they're using my business, and it sounds like you're speaking to a person, which is just crazy. It's just, so who knows where it's going to go. The only thing I know AI can't do is put hands on somebody and physically treat them yet.
Yeah.
Which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, fingers crossed. There are certain, I guess, boundaries, right, in that sense.
Mm.
So with this product you're developing, do you feel like you're sticking point at the moment in terms of tech, team, time, maybe something else?
No, I'm thinking through what I want to put into the content at this stage. I am using AI. What I did is I actually this morning, I took the two days worth of slides, PDF'd them, gave ChatGPT a heads up about what I was trying to create, and within literally seconds it said, I've read all your slides, which is like 240 slides, and this is what I reckon you can put into 4 hours of filming, might give us 3 hours worth of content. Would you like me? And it's just my mind when that. But so I'm working the process. I'm not hamstrung at the moment, but that's kind of where we're up to.
Yeah, just chipping away, right? Like chipping away one little at a time. Just to throw one in the mix, so I use GPT a fair bit, or OpenAI, but try mess around with other AIs as well. There's one that I use called Manus, MANUS, and run the queries and see what some of the differences are, because they're not all made equally, if that makes sense. Manus takes a very iterative approach, so it will run your task and then actually check its own work and then be like, I could have added this in, so I'm gonna just take another pass at it, and it's interesting how it operates, and the results can be slightly more or less in-depth. Sometimes it comes down to the prompt, but it's an interesting exercise at the very least.
Yeah, okay, I'll definitely check it out. I'm definitely sold on using AI to make things easier, and it always blows my mind as to exactly what it can do. It's just, crazy.
For sure.
Yeah.
Have you worked with many developers or agencies in the past?
No, I've only worked with, I've worked with marketing agencies in the past, like online digital marketing agencies, but nothing creative to solve a problem or create something, the type of things that we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Cool. And another one of the limits, I guess, if you had unlimited time or money, what would already be done at this point?
I'd just be, I'd have a library full of content selling all over the world, and I'd probably be sipping a cold beer on an island somewhere.
Amazing. What's sort of coming up? What's the next milestone you're working towards?
Well, the practice is ticking along well. We've got a big team, and we're in the process of recruiting based on demand. So that's ongoing. My focus this year has been on launching the education side in a more meaningful way. So that's really still where I'm focusing on. I've got the same course that I've just run is coming up again in March 2026, and I'm speaking at a conference, and I've got quite a busy year next year with lots of courses and speaking engagements and that type of thing. But it's pretty much the focus is education, just developing my ability to speak and trying to find, I guess, different audiences within the dental world, because some of the great feedback that I got from my first course was that you could take that basic content and you could massage it, excuse the pun, and it could be more appropriate for different types of dental audiences. So I guess it's doing some to understand what are the challenges of a specific audience that I can help solve with the same content but repurposed, maybe with some add-on content that addresses the types of cases that they see. So that's kind of my challenge for myself over the next, say, 12 months.
Amazing. That's cool. And are some of these things you're planning to or partner on or fund externally?
Well, certainly the anything in the space is a partnership between myself and this other organization that will take care of all the filming and all the production and all the technical side of that, because that's not my sweet spot. So, but when it comes to the in-person course delivery, that's just something I'll be doing pretty much on my own at this stage. Yeah,
cool. And in terms of the delivery digital course itself, is your partners in that end as well?
When you say delivery, what aspect of it are you referring to specifically?
So, Sorry, you've been mentioning like they're gonna take care of filming, production, editing, etc.
Yeah.
What about the there's part in that process where you have to collect tickets and deliver
Okay.
the core.
So the plan is to approach organizations that already have a consumer base of dentists that, for reasons of continuing education, need to keep upskilling. And so those organizations that we'll be targeting will have like learner, I don't know what it's called, there's a specific name for it, where they have got like learning platforms and payment gateways, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, those organizations also want a clip of the ticket, right? So I have no idea at this point in time how financially viable this will be at the end of the day, unless it's low cost but very high volume. So it's one of the reasons that I recognize the need to be partnering with the right people, even though each person involved wants their share of the proceeds. At least we'll be accessing large databases of people who are looking for this type of content. We've got to still figure out what content it is that actually is fit for that audience, and that's where we'll have to take the basic content that we create and then maybe tweak it with some additional footage or inclusions to make it specific for that audience. So yeah, all of that's still going to be figured out, but short answer to your question is yes, we need to partner with the right channels that have all those things in place.
Yeah, amazing. There's, I guess, other options that might be more suitable depending on your objectives, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, when you partner or, going down these channels, that ticket gets shared, right? Which is fair. Everyone's got to be, winning, or at least not losing, I guess, depending on the objective itself. But there's a few known examples, no more than a few, plenty. There's a plethora of evidence that you can self-publish, be your own theater, so to speak, and do very well at scale. So if you'd like, I can share you some examples afterwards. But there are ways to help with that.
I guess then what you have to do is you have to attract your own audience.
Correct.
Instead of taking your product and putting it in front of an existing audience.
Correct. Because see, even if you're putting it in front of an existing audience, there's no guarantee that they will buy it.
Yeah.
Because your existing, yes, there's a large database, but there's also 20,000-30,000 different movies for them to pick from. So you are competing, but you don't have agency over your competition.
Yeah.
Right? When you have your own sort of space to work with, all of a sudden things like ads become a viable option, organic growth, mailing lists, that you can communicate with people. You can just buy lists of your target audience from pretty much anywhere. They already exist, and there's and ethical ways of reaching out to those people without pinged for scam and stuff like that. So yes, they work, right? And I guess in a sense everything is work, but you have more. I prefer those sorts of avenues because you have more agency over your own success or failure than publishing on these big box platforms and hoping for the best, right? You can still do that though. There's no harm in, depending if you're then it's fine. But yeah, I've seen some of people who do jump into these, I think they're called learning management systems or something like that.
Yeah.
And expect a lot, but don't actually get the results they're looking for because they don't have agency over the internal works.
Yeah, you make a very valid point. I haven't really sort of contemplated it. Again, I guess going back to my earlier frustrations, not knowing what to do to create the digital product, this would be kind of the same attitudes towards, okay, I've got a product now I'm going to go and what do I do with it? It's just gather. I don't want it to gather dust on the shelf, right? So it would again be knowing, either working with or knowing who to ask to actually be able to get over all those hurdles, because it's just another whole world for people that are very bricks and mortar based, which is really how I've spent most of my career, right, in a building. To suddenly be in the digital universe and needing to try and understand that can sometimes be quite overwhelming.
Yeah, I bet. And yeah, it is its own world. It's a world where you can access as many or as few of billions of people, as opposed to, a clinic where your kilometer radius is 100,000. In a big city, in a smaller city like mine, I'm in Mount Gambier, about 5 hours away from you. 28,000 people. And, it can be restricting, but it depends how you look at it, right? If you only have to fill 60 hours a week, all of a sudden 28,000 is way too many people, depending on how you look at it, right? Yeah. What kind of support do you think would accelerate, the sort of creation of this course and the subsequent delivery of it the most?
It's a good question. I think there are different aspects of this where I think support would help. I think there's purely qualified support where I would definitely rely on colleagues to look at what I'm proposing to actually film and go, yeah, that makes sense to me, or have you considered maybe coming at it from a different angle? So I'm definitely going to be leaning on people to support me with the actual expert stuff. Then I think with regards to, certainly the thing that you're talking about now and the things you're proposing, they're all me. So I would definitely be looking to lean on people who have those expertise. I mean, one thing that I've learned in my journey is to recognize where our strengths and where our weaknesses are. And instead of trying to turn weaknesses into strengths, it's not so easy. If that's not your natural aptitude, is to know who to lean on for those skills. So, somebody asked me a question, one of my colleagues, they asked me a question about integration of our practice management software and, Xero accounting system. And I gave her, I told her what we're doing, and then she started to ask me a bit more technical questions about how the Xero was kind of spliced and diced in terms of reporting. And I'm like, above my pay grade, like, that's just not my spot. So I said, I'm pleading ignorance here. And she said, fair enough, right? You've got enough other things to worry about in your business to be the accountant as well. But I have a very good bookkeeper who I meet with once a month, and we review all the numbers. But I don't have to be the person, generating the reports. I've just accepted that my time is going to be more valuable doing visionary stuff and in area expertise than trying to also become, a financial whiz. Now, of course, people running businesses need basic. They need to have a baseline level of understanding of numbers, and I do. But I just, they're things that are better done by other people who have better skills. So leaning on those types of people for that type of support, and in the context of this conversation, it would be people with technical expertise in whether it's, content creation or content marketing I think would obviously help.
Yeah, amazing. And yeah, like you said, it's totally fine to leverage resource expertise. Like, here's a great example. We're recording this, and for me personally, to edit this into a published piece of content, not only would it take me a long time, but quality that is going to come out initially, not forever, but at least the first 20 times, is nowhere near what the person who's editing it currently can put out. So yeah, like you said, leveraging other skill sets and using it to be as effective as possible in the areas that matter more. Within that skill set is very important. And recognizing that.
Yeah, look, I think particularly in the industry that I'm in, where we're first trained with technical types of skills, technical in the sense physiotherapists are very good at doing their job as physiotherapists. They're not good at being business people. They're not good at being tech people. Now, the younger generation of physios might be much more tech savvy just because they've grown up in a world that is more technical from that. I think what I and I often have these conversations, particularly with people who still see, they're still looking at the costs of all these additional services as something that they can't afford. But what they're seeing is what it's costing them not to use their expertise. So I had this conversation with a man who was still doing, their own BASs at the end of the month, and said it was a nightmare. And I'm like, I pay my bookkeeper to do that, and yes, I'm paying him to do it, but it's easy to do because it's his skill set. So the amount of time that you'll save, your 4 or 5 hours every quarter to do your BAS, you can make a lot more money seeing patients in that time. And so people need to understand the value of leveraging other people's skills and not looking at it purely as a cost to them that they can't afford.
Yeah, it's
and again, absolutely. But it's not something we naturally think about unless sometimes people ask you the right questions about it. So it was just part of my growth as a business owner to understand that things are worth paying for.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you said it well. Is what it's going to not to actually do that, and for what is, the price of a bookkeeper per quarter, maybe $300, $400, somewhere in that realm, depending. That's like a consultation, right? Again, depending, but usually these costs that we worry about are actually, in terms of our own time, quite valuable. I had a similar discussion with an electrician recently, and he was like, oh, but that much per month, are you kidding me? I'm like, bro, that's the cost to fit a light bulb. Literally, that's what someone pays you to go and service a quarter of an air conditioner. Relax, and yeah, all of a sudden you can see the perspective changing quite a lot in real time almost. Amazing.
The light bulb switched on.
Yeah, right. And I gave him that one for free. We'll jump into our lightning round, Darren. What's the best piece of advice you've received when trying to build something new?
Probably to allow myself to think big. So just to try and get past the sort of self-limiting beliefs that we all tend to put on ourselves if we question our why me and what makes me qualified to do this. Is just, you've just got to have that leap of faith and just dream big. So yeah.
Amazing. And is there any advice you'd give to somebody who's starting out with with idea or looking at their own business, but isn't sure where to begin?
I think if we talk about the business side, like opening a business, I think there's a great book called Built to Sell, and I think when you're designing the business, always think, if I was somebody else coming to buy this business from me, what would I want that business to look like? How organized would I want it to be? How much structure, leverage, systems, etc. And I start very purposeful in how we start, rather than getting to the stage where, in my case, I had a good business based on reputation and based on service delivery, but it was a house of cards in terms of its structure, right? And I was like the keystone of it. Without me, there was no business. And so it took a lot of very hard work to completely rebuild the foundations, which I'm proud I've done successfully. But I think there's so much support out there, and this sort of leads back to the conversation we just finished having about having and valuing qualified support. Is we don't need to do anything alone. We can pay people with the right skills to help set us up from the beginning for success. And so that's probably the biggest message that I give people. It doesn't really matter what industry they're in. What they want to know is, what are the best do? And how do I start with some mini version of what the best are doing? And then who do I need to help support me so that when I put those foundations in, they're solid? So that's probably my advice.
Amazing. That's fantastic. Where can people find out more about you and your work and keep up the things that you're doing?
So they can look me up on LinkedIn. So the spelling name is Darron, Darron, and the surname is Goralsky. That's my personal LinkedIn. If they want to see more about my practice, the URL is Melbourne, Melbourne, T for Tom, M for Mary, J for something else, TMJ Centre, CENTRE.com.au, and we're located in North in Melbourne. And the website is a really good resource from a clinical perspective, but just to connect with me and see what I'm up to, LinkedIn is where I'm probably most active.
Amazing. I'll have all those linked underneath everywhere that this is published, along with your bio. And thank you, Darron. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a
pleasure speaking to you, Shuj, and learning from your perspective as well about all the cool things I could be doing with more AI.
Absolutely. We'll try and up again in some and see. We've gone this that's coming out. Do you have a name for it yet?
No.
We'll come up with one.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. It's been great.